The third level, the self-actualization needs, the need to want to be recognized for one's skills, talents, achievements, especially in the realm of performance, an athlete, an artist, wanting to be recognized. And then the other level, the other one is the need for knowledge, wisdom. And that in the realm of performance, that can be teaching or being an influencer. These are levels of human need, the liver and pericardium.
I'm Michael Max, and this is Geological, the podcast that curates East Asian medicine and methods through the power of conversation. A wise man once counseled, "Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and render unto God that which is God's." Another way to say this is render to heaven that which is of the domain of heaven, and to earth that which is of the earth. Heaven, it bespeaks a unity and undifferentiated potentials. The earth, divided into the 10,000 things. More practical than potential, it's made up of divisions. The images and energies of unity that work for heaven don't play so well on earth. Phrases like, "we are all one," are a recognition of the influence of heaven, but often enough used here on earth as a way to manipulate and control. The rules of heaven do not apply to earth. Ignore the workings of the 10,000 things. Pretend the generative and control cycles of the 5 phases do not have real consequences. Ignore the very real limits that the differences that make a difference have, and you'll be in for a world of hurt. I'm not suggesting ignoring the influences of heaven. The 10 heavenly stems do dance with the 12 earthly branches. Heaven and earth, indeed, profoundly interact, but don't mistake the influences of one for the other. It's true enough, we are all one in heaven's eyes, but here on the mud ball, if you're part of the metal tribe, then you need to watch out for those fire folks. The 5 phases bespeak a unity, but you'll suffer needlessly by ignoring the realities of the earth plane. Giving to the earth that which is of the earth, and to heaven that which is of heaven, it's a distinction that I've muddled and only recently now considering. I think about ecosystems and how, in their individuality, creatures interact within a larger whole. Zoom in, zoom out, you'll find expressions of both unity and division. Division, it's not bad or wrong. It's that it gives us the kaleidoscopic interplay of yin and yang. Standing in between heaven and earth as we do, it gives us the opportunity to imbibe the influences of both. But confuse the contractive nature of earth with the expansive nature of heaven, that's going to bring some pain and suffering. Knowing when to attend to heaven and when to attend to earth, it's good advice. There is that which carries the potential of heaven, and that which is rooted in earth. Us humans in the middle, it's not a simple linear connection of the two. Really, it's a spiral unfolding of iterative development. Our growing into being a seasoned practitioner, also a process of development, and often enough with some surprising turns of events. In this conversation with Evan Mahoney, we discuss Saam acupuncture and, in particular, how using the 5-phase dynamics of tonifying a particular meridian can be combined with the patient's own attention and mental process. The Buddhist monk Saam, who is credited with seeing into the dynamics of this system, did so through the meditative process. Oddly enough, Evan has had his own experience with meditation, and that also changed some of the troubles that he had. We're going to get into this and a whole lot more in just a moment. Stay tuned. These conversations come to you through the generous support of our sponsors and members. Blue Poppy, your new one-stop shop, has speedy shipping options on everything that you need for your clinic. It's Women's Health Month at Mayway Herbs. Check out their new website for learning resources on helping women with herbal medicine. Are you a creature of habit? How about making a change that helps your patients and the planet with AccuFast needles? And later in the show, raising your fees doesn't have to be a difficult process. Jane has helpful suggestions on making it easy and effective. And finally, have you considered that having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things that you can do? Julie Bear-Don't-Walk has, and she can help you do something about it too. Do be sure to visit the sponsors page on the Qiological website to take advantage of all the special offers our terrific sponsors have for listeners of the podcast. Picture this. Your clinic is buzzing with patients, and then you realize that you're down to your last box of needles. No need for panic, because Blue Poppy, your one-stop shop for all your acupuncture needs, they ship orders received before 3 p.m. on the same day. With a quick visit to Blue Poppy's website, you can order premium needles, herbal formulas, and that special Dr. Bob's oil that your patients love. Blue Poppy understands practitioners can't keep patients waiting. That's why they strive to get you what you need when you need it. From high-quality Chinese herbs and formulations to acupuncture supplies and clinical essentials, Blue Poppy has served practitioners for nearly 40 years with products that meet the highest of standards. Discover everything Blue Poppy has to offer by visiting www.bluepoppy.com, and don't forget to subscribe to their mailing list for exclusive offers and more.
Hi folks, I'm Yvonne Lyle, president of Mayway Herbs. May is Women's Health Month, and as a women-owned and women-run business, we especially love how Chinese medicine can support wellness through every stage of a woman's life. So in this month's newsletter and podcast, we're covering topics like PMS, pregnancy, menopause, and osteoporosis. We'll share expert insights and effective treatment strategies you can put to good use in your clinic. Our Plumflower brand line includes herbal tea pills, tablets, extract granules, and organic herbs, all of which you can find on Mayway.com, and where you can also find articles, videos, and other resources to support your practice. Since 1969, Mayway has been a trusted source for high-quality herbal products. In these challenging times, please know that we remain committed to keeping our products accessible and affordable so you can take care of yourself and your patients. As always, thank you for supporting Real Chinese Medicine.
Daily habits and routines feel comforting, familiar, easy, automatic. That's the power of repetition. You've worked out the kinks and can do it with your eyes closed. But what if you shook things up? What if you ditched the old routine and tried something new? Hi, I'm John Sten. I've practiced acupuncture for over 30 years, and together with my wife Kelly, we created the world's first eco-friendly acupuncture needle. The AccuFast earth-friendly needle system cuts your packaging waste by 60 to 90%, depending upon your needle type, speeds up your needling, gives you more control, and best of all, while you're healing patients, we plant a tree for every 2 boxes your clinic uses. Thousands of acupuncturists have already made the switch. In just the last year, they've helped plant over 16,000 trees. Since we started, that number has grown to over 50,000. So break the routine. Be the change. Visit AccuFastNeedles.com. Your patients and the planet will thank you.
Evan Mahoney, welcome to Qiological.
Thanks, Michael. It's really great to be here.
I'm delighted to have you here. You joined us earlier in the year. We had a Saam Chautauqua. We had a whole bunch of different Saam practitioners, riffing and sharing, and we're like hanging out in the mosh pit, doing Saam acupuncture. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really a great event, and I really appreciate you putting that together. I mean, that was really an amazing event. I think it was a historical event for Saam acupuncture, and I just want to congratulate you and thank you on coming up with that idea. You did a great job.
Well, the thing about a great idea, it's like, I don't know if it was a great idea. Like, I had this idea. I was thinking, look, I've been using Saam in my own clinic for like 5-6 years, very, deeply immersed in the work that Toby's been doing because, that's where I learned it. But, I've also been aware that there's people like you that have written books. There's the whole Korean group that, many of us English speakers never hear from. It's like this weird method that you kind of hear about it, but over on the sidelines somewhere. And I just thought, man, if we could just bring everybody together have a little Saam-a-palooza, like just get everyone together and, riff, like you get a bunch of bands together or something. Maybe that would be a good idea. But here's the thing about an idea that's never been done. You never know if it's going to work,
Yeah.
right? It's like, hey, let's have a big party, but what if no one shows up?
Yeah. And I just, I know it's a big risk too. I mean, to get the technical details amongst like 15 other people coordinating everything. So I know there's a lot of stress that you put upon yourself and your team, and the risk of, technical failure. That was when I was starting the program, that was my huge stress was, is everything going to be working out over here, especially my internet connection. For whatever reason, my long-term internet connection was starting to go down a few days before that. So I had to go to my neighbor's office and do it out of there. So you took a big risk and on an idea, and you were very creative. And I'm really glad it really went very well and successfully.
Well, what's life without a little risk,
Are you an artist? Do you think would you consider yourself to be an artist?
That's an interesting question. Would I consider myself to be an artist? I think of myself more as a craftsman than an artist.
Yep, but a highly skilled craftsman, like carving furniture, like a master craftsman.
Yeah. Well, I actually used to blow glass,
Oh, really?
like in a younger iteration of me. And I was always more interested in like making beautiful on-center, pretty to look at pieces in like the wild, wobbly, woogity stuff. Like the art side of it, I was like, I don't know. But like, can I blow a really nice, thin piece of glass that's on center and, looks nice and is functional? I like making functional stuff.
Yeah, like well proportioned, like symmetrical. That's good though. So you have like the technical side of things, the technical craftsman.
I like the technical side of things. I think it's one of the reasons why I'm drawn to acupuncture. All right, look, there's an artistic side, there's a poetic side, and that's interesting. It's enticing to some degree, but having a kind of technical expertise, like being able to do the job, being able to see what needs to be done and knowing how to do it, and being able to do it with a kind of finesse, I think, is what makes it really fun for me as a practitioner.
Yeah, and it really is like particularly Saam acupuncture. It's a technique which derives the name technical. And so there is technique and skill about it. And I'm sure we all have our different little touches that we apply it when we're doing it on a patient. I kind of liken it to at the Chautauqua event to like being a DJ and you're spinning discs and you're spinning the needles clockwise and you're coordinating with the patient's breathing. And that's my application. I coordinate with the patient's breathing as probably many of us do, rotating clockwise and counterclockwise and on the needles. So there is a lot of like literally technical details about the technique.
There is, and I'm glad you bring that up. It's funny, the breath is so present and so easy to be attentive to. And I listen to you saying, I rotate the needles in coordination with the patient's breath. And I think, yeah, that makes sense. How come I don't do that? I probably should do that. That makes a lot of sense.
Maybe just for that moment in class in school 20, 30 years ago, you're just momentary, were distracted or something.
No, I don't think so. I've heard people mention it before, and there's times when I've been more attentive to watching my patient's breathing. I find it really interesting practicing acupuncture because over the time of doing it, there's like different things that get my attention. I'll kind of go into an inquiry around that and pay attention to that. So now we're having this conversation. I'm pretty sure the influence on me, one of the influences will be I'm going to go back to clinic and be more attentive to watching my patient's breathing, just to see what's there that I've not been picking up on.
I've been lately like really, I want my patients to feel chi. So I'm almost doing like, I almost think of it like a suggestion or hypnosis. I don't want to say hypnosis, but I'm almost suggesting nowadays to my patients, like, I want you to feel this energy. It's going to be a pulsing, throbbing sensation, to put it in their mind first. And I know this differs from your approach. I think you want, maybe there's some things you just want to do the acupuncture, let it work on itself and let the needles do the work. But lately I've been like just doing this kind of suggestion and seeing what the effects are to see if patients can feel the chi. I think we incorporate, and I've always wanted to incorporate the patient's mind with the Saam technique. I emphasize meditation on particularly the two tonifying points of whatever the Junggyuk tonifying technique. So I'm always like having them meditate on these two major points of the four needle technique. Like, for instance, another suggestion I did the other day is I'm doing a kidney treatment. And as you know, the kidneys transform body fluids. I talked with the patient about edema. They had some swelling. They had some reproductive issues. They were concerned with BPH, erectile dysfunction. So I said, I'm just going to suggest this to the patient, see how it works. Just imagine the kidneys as a machine transforming body fluids working. And I'm literally like spinning the influential points, the front moves of the kidney, pointing to this area. The kidneys are a machine down here and they're churning over, they're transforming body fluids. So I really suggested it pretty heavily in the patient's mind as I was doing this kidney technique. But I thought it was pretty helpful. And that's kind of the direction I've been leaning towards, a little more emphasis on suggesting, bringing the patient's mind to the points and kind of making them visualize the organs at work. So I don't know. I think it's helpful, especially when trying to get them to feel the chi. Now, of course, when we do breathing and rotating the needles, there's that day chi sensation that we aim to achieve, but I don't always get it, spinning and rotating the needles. Some patients just don't feel it. So I then just offer some suggestions as well. Do you find that you get a day chi sensation pretty consistently when you do the acupuncture, Michael?
That's a great question. So I'm going to answer that. But first, I want to say I really appreciate what you're doing with inviting your patients to explore the sensation of having chi. Right. So often, and this makes a lot of sense, they're a little nervous. We're coming at them with a needle. Most people have had bad experiences with needles. They've also had good experiences if they've been to an acupuncturist. But, it's like, ooh, is this going to hurt? That's always in the back of the mind. And as a practitioner, I want my patients to feel comfortable. I don't want to hurt them. And even if they're getting strong Tae Chi, I don't want it to be an unpleasant experience. I want it to be an experience. Often people say, is this going to hurt? And I'll say, well, I wouldn't necessarily say acupuncture is painful, but it often has sensation. Just bringing that idea of sensation. I like what you're doing with inviting people to explore having the sensation of Tae Chi, having the sensation of the needle, like explore it, like become friendly with it, become curious about it. I like that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Especially when the patient feels the chi, you come in, you ask, how did it go? I always ask, did you feel any unusual sensations? Yeah, no, or yes, I really did. I felt this. When they feel the chi, it's always like a good response. It's always a good outcome. I always say, oh, that's very favorable, very good, So I get encouraged and I get excited actually when patients feel the energy, man. That just gets me excited. Like I just get excited to kind of turn people on to this idea of chi. It's funny because, like, in the acupuncture role in the broader medical spectrum, when there was the dry needle debate going on, and the dry needles had to kind of differentiate themselves from acupuncture, and they would say, "Oh, that's just the energy," but very kind of dismissive, like it's an invisible energy. It's not really anything. But actually, the chi is, to me, it's like the top major theory of acupuncture. The top three. There's chi. There's the theory of the five elements, and yin and yang. These to me are like the three major top theories of acupuncture, chi being a major theory. So I think it's very important to turn people into chi as far as a mechanism for healing and explanation of human nature, human health. It has a vital role, I think, in the conversation going forward. If we're going to have a place in, any kind of health discussions, I think chi ought to assert itself rightfully in medical discussions. I know a lot of acupuncturists may want to even dismiss that, oh, no, we shouldn't talk about the energy. People think it's kind of a woo-woo thing or something, but to me, it's very important. So and that's what I like about Sam, that encouraged me from the start, like with like, for instance, I think you've gotten to know Dr. Chu very well.
Well, a little bit. And I've got to know some of his work, like mostly through Joshua Park, like the Mind Path stuff in particular. And you too, your book.
Yeah.
You go into that. This whole Mind Path idea.
Yeah, Dr. Chu was my only Sam teacher was Dr. Chu. Everything I learned from Saam before I learned about Toby for about 20 years. Everything I did was derived from Dr. Choo's book and work. His textbook's out there. It's not published, but it's his classroom manuscript. And if you get that in the first paragraph, it's the legend of Saam. Maybe your listeners aren't familiar with who Saam was. He was a monk from 17th century Korea. And the mystery of Saam, the legend of Saam is that he meditated in a cave for 13 years and through meditation discovered the mystery of acupuncture. So that's the very first paragraph in Dr. Choo's book. So when I read that first paragraph, he discovered the mystery of acupuncture. Well, I knew right away because I had just actually, prior to my schooling, I was a patient for 2 months. I was first an acupuncture patient. Through meditation, I discovered the mystery of qi likewise, without even knowing what it was. But I can explain that in more detail if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, I know, and I know I've listened to your podcast, and I love that you've hit on this question, and you ask every acupuncturist. I think you asked this question, and it's like, how did you get involved in acupuncture? How did you?
I know it's so weird. I mean, come on, look, we're Westerners. It's a time that acupuncture sort of came into our awareness. It wasn't a common thing. It was pretty on the edge.
Yeah. And for me, like, I think it's destiny and serendipity that drew us to acupuncture. Because if you're growing up like in a small, like 20, 30 years ago, a small town in Iowa or Pennsylvania, in the middle of Pennsylvania, wouldn't have had the opportunity to even fall into acupuncture. Fortunately, like in my story, how did I get involved? I had heart problems for a long period of time. I think I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I think I probably got rheumatic heart disease from exposure to cold in Pennsylvania, winter times. Nothing really manifest. My first heart irregularity or palpitation was when I was 18 years old in college. Just a minimal heart thing, a murmur, but it got my attention. So for 12 years, I had these issues, and it got escalatingly worse about 12 years later when I was in California, Los Angeles, and I ended up in the hospital. And from that point on, I finally started to kind of seek care for this condition because prior to that, I never sought medical care. So I wasn't too extensive. I didn't have insurance, and I didn't really get satisfaction from the Western cardiologist. One night I had a really bad episode of heart irregularities. And so I was on my knees and I looking through the phone book, and acupuncture came into my mind.
On my knees looking through the phone book. Now there's an image for you. Wow, on your knees.
Yeah, and I don't know if you could imagine, like, the heart is like just irregular. Like there's an irregular pounding. Like that whole night was not good, and it was a desperate night. So I don't know. Acupuncture came to my mind. I flipped the phone book, and this was the yellow page days, before the cell phones. And so there was an acupuncturist in Santa Monica, and he even advertised himself as a cardiology specialist in China. So that morning I called him, and fortunately I got in to see him that morning, and that was the beginning of a life-changing event. I did the acupuncture with him, and he stuck needles in my hands and legs, and he said, "Oh, meditate," and shut the door on me. And so I said, "Okay, I guess."
Okay, how do I do that?
Yeah. Well, I already did meditation, and I was already doing all kinds of things to help myself with my heart. And one thing I was doing is called, and you may have heard of it, visualization. And the idea behind this visualization meditation technique, and for me, was you picture the organ, the damaged organ, in its 3 dimensions, and you bring it healing energy. So I was always doing that. I was imagining my heart, trying to fix my heart. So I'm lying in the room, like, okay, well, he didn't put any needles in my chest area at all. They were in like PC6. That was a big one, I remember. Maybe lung 8. I think stomach 36, and maybe stomach 40, the phlegm. He probably diagnosed me with a phlegm condition, the influential point of phlegm, stomach 40. So anyway, I meditated on the points. And then when he came to take the needles out, I felt a little twinge on that stomach 40. He took the needle out, and I felt like something like maybe affect my heart. So I'm like, oh, that did something. But I told him, I said, "Hey, doc, I'm doing this meditation where I'm focusing on the heart." And he stops me right there. And he says, "Don't do that meditation." He said, "You're bringing too much pressure to your heart." And that was amazing. That was like, if there's a light bulb moment for me, that was it. Okay. I went home and really thought about that. And I said, okay, I'm meditating on my heart. I'm putting too much pressure. So what I did is I didn't know the points at the time. My chief complaint there was I had a heart problem. He stuck a needle in my wrist in PC6. And I said, that must be good for the heart. So instead of meditating on my heart and visualization, I immediately changed my meditation to where he put the acupuncture points. Now, you make a decision if you're really deathly ill, you make a decision at some point in your life where your health becomes your number one priority. Nothing else matters. So from that point on, I would lie down and meditate on the point for hours and hours and hours. And I would see the acupuncturist twice a week for 3 weeks, about 2 months I did it total. But during this time, in between treatments, I would just lay down and meditate on the points where he did. And soon enough, I started feeling this weird sensation, and I didn't know what it was. It was a weird pulsing, throbbing sensation. I could feel it where I was meditating at the wrist. And I said, this is really strange. I said, is it a blood pulsing of blood? And so at one point, I shift my attention from that PC6 wrist point to the thumb, just somewhere in the thinner eminence of my thumb. I said, I'm going to just focus there. And all of a sudden, I could feel this pulsing there. And I said, well, there's not like a major blood artery there. I could feel this pulsing in it. And there was like 2 points pulsing. I said, this is really strange. So the next treatment, I went to him and said, hey, doc, man, I'm getting these weird sensations. And I told him, and he said, oh, you're sensitive to the chi. And that was the very, very first time I ever heard chi in my life. 32 years old, never heard of it, didn't know anything about it. So that's all he said. He said, you're sensitive to the chi. I still didn't know it. I didn't know what it was still, but I said, I guess that's a good thing. So I just kept meditating on it. And each time and this is something I also coach my patients on. Before I do the needles or during the needles, I always coach them on 2 things about chi. And it's like, I tell them, in the meditational arts of Tai Chi, Qigong, and acupuncture, there's a saying, and I'm sure you've heard of this, Michael, where the mind goes, so goes Qi. Have you heard of that?
Of course.
Do you remember where the source is that you heard that from?
Somebody in acupuncture school said it. And, look, I'm sure it's there in one of the great books.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Here's something I've discovered over the years. While we're very connected to this history and this, all this ancient art, I think I'm more connected to like the most influential 5 teachers and maybe 3 friends that I've had. It's like we get these things like where the mind goes, the chi goes. And yeah, I'm sure it came from a great tradition, but for me, it's always from someone like you got this from that acupuncturist that you saw. He was a teacher for you in a way, very profound, able to connect with you and the experience that you were having and say something that changed your life.
Yeah, and it was very minimal. He didn't explain at all. He just said, oh, you're sensitive to the chi, and then just proceeded on. And I was like, well, I don't know what I could have asked him, I guess.
This episode is brought to you by Jane, the clinic management software that honestly just makes running a practice easier. Let's dive into something that's never easy, but sometimes necessary: raising your fees. It can feel awkward, right? But here's a tip that can really help. Consider offering flexibility to your patients as you introduce the change. When patients face new fees, it's natural for them to feel uncertain or concerned. That's where flexibility can really make a difference. Offering options like a phased increase, suggesting a payment plan, or even taking a moment to talk things through can help to ease the transition. These thoughtful gestures show your patients that you're listening and care about them, which strengthens the trust you've worked so hard to build. If you're looking for more ideas on how to navigate these kinds of changes, head to frontdesk.jane.app and check out the article, How to Tell Clients You're Raising Your Fees. One last thing, if you're ready to give Jane a try, you can use the code CHIOLOGICAL for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Well, that's the sign of someone who's like a true mentor in a way, right? There's a moment of time and it's very potent and it changes your life.
And that's the moment of serendipity for me. I mean, from that point on, with my acupuncture career and school, Everything was very serendipitous and it became destiny. And then the other saying that we learn is, have you heard of this one? Cultivate your garden of chi.
I've heard things like that, yes.
Yeah. So I always tell what does that mean? What does that imply? Cultivating your garden of chi.
Well, actually, I've heard people talk about cultivating chi, but you're the first person I've heard that said cultivate a garden of chi. That's different.
Yeah. I think that's coming from the Tai Chi, Qigong fields, meditational fields. So what does that imply? Cultivate your garden of chi. Well, how does a garden start? It starts as a seed. And that's how I like in my experience. When I first experienced chi, it was this very faint tingling sensations. But the more you do it, the more you practice it, the more full the feeling becomes, the more lush it becomes. And if you really practice it, the sooner you go into meditation, the quicker you can feel the energy become stronger and stronger and stronger. So that's what I was doing during these acupuncture treatments. And for me, really the solidifying moment for me was I had a bad heart palpitation one evening. This was about 3 weeks into my acupuncture sessions. I was meditating every day, 5 hours a day or longer. I was coming home to my apartment, and right outside my apartment, I had a sequence of heart palpitations, like 4 just strong boom, boom, boom. So fortunately, I was right outside my apartment. I go upstairs, lay down on the ground, meditate on the acupuncture point. I start feeling the throbbing, pulsing energy. But very quickly after that, I felt a release of pressure from my heart and just go right down to that point where I was meditating on. It was literally like a release of pressure. And so that was the moment for me where I said immediately, I said, I've got control over this. Now, I don't know if you've had experience with heart palpitations, arrhythmias and stuff, but you could be in any moment, in any situation, and all of a sudden the heart will go into an AFib or irregular heartbeat. I would sometimes I would be in the middle of the night. I'd wake up from a sleep and my heart would be like going ka-kunk, ka-kunk, not boom, 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 boom. It would be ka-ka-ding, ka-ka-ding, ding. And I'm like, I'm sleeping. What did I do to set this off? It was so unpredictable, and it could happen for many times every day. My case was very severe. I mean, it could happen multitudes of times per day for weeks or months on end. Sometimes I'd have a few weeks where not much was going on, but this was for a long time, over a decade. So that moment when I meditated and I felt that release of pressure, I said, that was the first time I said, I got control over this. And really that moment I did, and all my anxiety subside immediately from that. And, now I didn't get a quick healing experience. I didn't cure myself, and I probably still haven't cured myself. But from that point on, I could reduce the severity and the frequency of my irregular heartbeats from that moment on by just doing the meditation. So, such a fascinating experience. And for me, it was a life and death situation. And fortunately, the serendipitous part is I was in Los Angeles with about 8 acupuncture schools at that time. So within 2 months of my treatment, I enrolled in school. It was Samra University in Los Angeles. And that happened to be one of my teachers was Dr. Choo, Dr. Tae Cheong Choo. And he was probably one of just a few Saam acupuncture teachers in the country at that time. So I was really lucky. I mean, he already had a great reputation. He was so friendly, personable, like smiling, gentle, caring. He had a great reputation already and I think within my second semester, my first class with him was acupuncture anatomy. But I think that point he was already, teaching Saam in clinic and in classroom. I was already looking forward to that Saam class, which I think I took like within another semester or two. And that first day in class with his textbook, I read that in the paragraph about this monk, this 17th century monk, Saam, who for 13 years meditated in a cave.
It kind of rhymes with your experience.
Yeah, he meditated in a cave and discovered the mystery of acupuncture. And when I read that paragraph with the meditation I've been doing for probably 6 months to a year I said, this is what I'm doing. It's this, I'm meditating and I'm discovering this chi And I just totally related to this 17th century monk. And from there, it just never stopped the fascination. So yeah, very similar to like to have Dr. Chu as a teacher for me was like life saving. I don't know like what kind of career I would have in acupuncture if I'd never got to have his class or met him at that time.
You don't know because that's not the path you followed. I 100% agree with you. There are these pivotal moments, or these moments of serendipity. They do change our destiny. It makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. And partly it's what we bring to it. Like in your case, you brought an illness that you've been working with, a certain kind of curiosity, a kind of openness to the situation. In Chinese, there's a phrase, yuan fun. And yuan fun often gets translated as fate, but that's not quite right. You know, fate is almost like you're doomed to something, right? Like, oh, it's going to happen no matter what. But yuan fun is more like opportunity meets willingness.
That's great.
Yeah. So you had a very powerful several moments of yuan fun that put you on that path. And what a fortunate thing. Some acupuncture, I mean, it really has been kind of in the background here in the States. You know, it comes through the Korean tradition in the Korean communities. You know, there's other kinds of, I'm going to call them subsystems like Tan or Dong or some of the Japanese traditions, which have gotten quite a bit of traction in our acupuncture world. But it seems like until recently hasn't. And yet here you are, you've been doing it for 20 years. You learned it side by side with your TCM.
Okay, so I want to ask you, you have a good familiarity with the Chinese language?
A little bit. I spent some years in Taiwan and some years in Beijing. I had the intention of going over with like learning enough Chinese that I could do Chinese medicine in Chinese.
Yeah, I think the language is, I don't have any background in it, in a very minimal understanding, but I love the pictograms and the meanings that are drawn up underneath the pictograms, and it's very profound, like very profound stuff. I don't know if you ever read Dr. Daniel Kyun's book, The Spark in the Machine,
Yes, I have. It's brilliant.
and he goes into some things that are pretty remarkable here. These pictograms, like of the gallbladder, for instance, is like explaining a web. And it's like this web is picked up with MRIs or CAT scan imaging that wouldn't have been, visible thousands of years ago. But he links these pictogram ideas, explanations with modern imaging and so forth. It's really profound and remarkable.
I have found too that the characters will often tell you something about what they're about. So one of my favorite examples is the character for listen. So in traditional Chinese, listen is made up of eyes, ears, heart.
So this listening, is the pictogram denote like literally eyes, ears, heart?
Ears, eyes, heart. Along with the character, there's this like cross-like character, which means present moment, a dash, which means single-minded attention, and the character for like sovereign or king, like the sovereign aspect of you that is attending in the present moment, single-mindedly with your eyes, ears, and heart. That's how you listen. The character tells you how to do the action of it.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
It is remarkable.
I think if there's any future students listening in on your podcast, I mean, I know there's acupuncturists where it's like destiny and serendipity that draws them to the field. So hopefully, there's some potential students out here that, also are drawn in similar manners. And I think it's a willingness to learn. I think constitutionally wise, we're probably in that level 3 human needs, like knowledge and wisdom, the need to accumulate knowledge and wisdom. So yeah, those type of people I think would be drawn to the field. And those are the type of people that might be listening to the podcast right now. And I think a career in acupuncture could suit them very well.
They might be. This could change their path. I actually know some folks who, through listening to the podcast, this is how long the podcast has been around. Through listening to the podcast, they decided to go to acupuncture school. How wild is that?
Yeah, that's great, man. What a feeling for you. You've been doing over 300 and what, 80 episodes. This is probably drawing near 400 now.
Rolling up on 400.
That's remarkable. I mean, boy, that's a passion. That's just a passion of yours, and I really appreciate your work and your commitment to this.
Well, it's strange for me. I never expected to like do podcasts and stuff. I mean, look, 10 years ago, podcasts barely existed, right? I got into it kind of as a hunch, as an experiment. And then I found myself in a place like St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm not around a bunch of acupuncturists. So this was a way of, talking to people and hanging out. And, it's fun to hang out with your colleagues and chew the fat on medicine, and because it's so interesting. So it's been a surprise for me to do this. I was never like an audio-visual geek or anything. And I'm actually more introverted than extroverted. So it's a little weird sometimes.
If you have any desire to be like, did you have a desire to be a performer? And I'm alluding to these three levels of human needs, which I don't know if you remember. The third level, the self-actualization needs, the need to want to be recognized for one's skills, talents, achievements, especially in the realm of performance, an athlete, an artist, wanting to be recognized. And then the other level, the other one is the need for knowledge, wisdom. And that in the realm of performance, that can be teaching or being an influencer. These are levels of human need, the liver and pericardium, somebody that manifests as managerial control over others. But I wanted to ask if you ever had any aspirations to be, a performer, an artist. Like, for instance, I think you got a great radio voice, if nobody's ever told you that before, but, radio or in movies, broadcasting, did you ever have desires like that before, Michael, when you're younger?
That's a great question. As a kid, I was really into theater, like as a teenager. In particular, improv. I dug the groove of improv because it's this very immediate thing happening in the moment. You take what is present and you riff with it. I wasn't musical. My brother's very musical. I wasn't musical. I'm still not. But, I like that idea of riffing with like what's happening in the moment. And improv theater totally gives you permission to explore that world. As we're having this conversation, Evan, I realize that thing I did as a kid and that thing I enjoyed about improv, it's also what I enjoyed about clinic. It's like, what's here? I don't know. I don't know what's here. Let's see what shows up. Let's see what's present, and then interact with whatever is unfolding, and then continue to interact with what's unfolding.
That's something incredible. I find incredible. Like, you get new patients in your clinic and you don't know anything about them, and you put the pieces together within a few minutes, and you're telling them this and that about themselves, and manipulating their health. To me, it's like really remarkable how quickly they come in, and from their point of coming into treatment and what we're doing, that's the technical, skill and proficiency that we were talking about earlier. But okay, so that's great. Where did you go to college? You did it were you in theater in college or when you were younger?
After high school, I quit doing that. I didn't want to go to college. I wasn't that interested. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And look, I come from a lower middle class family. It's not like we had money, to really do that. My parents were very keen on me going to college, but I wasn't keen on it and I didn't want to go. What I wanted to do was learn how to make sails for sailboats. Right? I was really into sailing and I wanted to make sails for sailboats. And as a kid, I had a job. There was a local sailboat builder where I lived. And as a kid, I built boats. I built little racing boats as a job. But that was like really, fiberglass is nasty work. So even as a young person, it's like, yeah, I don't want to be involved in this side of it. And, we didn't have sailmakers. And it was just like a thing I wanted to do. But you know what? I didn't have the courage to follow it. I didn't have the courage. If I really had the courage to follow it at a younger age, I would have moved up to Wisconsin and just moved and then hung out at the sail loft until they, gave me a damn job or something. I just kind of knocked around, and at a certain point I went to college because I don't know what else to do. And I studied urban planning because I didn't know what else to do. I thought, well, maybe I can do something that'll help the environment and better planning and blah, blah, blah. And I got into my third year of college and realized I'm not interested in any of this. I'm wasting my time and I'm wasting what little money I got and wasting my parents' money, what little they could give me. And I dropped out. I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm not going to waste my money here. I finished my junior year. I had enough wherewithal to go, I got another 2 months here. I'm just going to like finish this, like complete that piece, because maybe I'll pick it up later, and just like headed west because I didn't know what else to do. A friend of mine said, go plant trees in Oregon. You'll make money. And I did.
And did you make money?
I did make money. I made enough money to like travel the rest of the summer. And I learned some amazing things about people that plant trees, like serious ne'er-do-wells, alcoholics, criminals, maybe somewhat mentally ill. I mean, it was a crazy crew of people. Talk about an education. Holy Mother of God.
But you're out there in nature in the big redwoods forest.
These were more Doug fir and ponderosa pine up in Oregon and Idaho. It's quite an education.
Did you end up going to like Thailand and China like after that, or did you finish out college and then go?
Oh man, that all came way, way later. I kind of dinked around that summer. It was cool. I traveled all over the place. Landed in Seattle to visit a friend of mine from St. Louis, and I remember parking my Volkswagen van at the corner of First and Virginia in Seattle, right by the Pike Place Market, walking down this very steep hill, looking out over the Puget Sound and the mountains there. And I just went, oh, this is what home feels like. I just stayed.
Did you stay in the Bush Hotel? You remember the Bush Hotel?
I do remember the Bush Hotel. I did not stay in the Bush Hotel.
It's right in that circle. Seattle's a launching point. Did a couple summers up in Alaska. So Seattle was the launching point from, Anchorage to Seattle. So that was kind of what do you call these rundown hotels, that kind of vibe.
Flea bags.
So yeah, knocking about. I was the same. I mean, your story is very similar to mine. Like not much focus with my college degree. I did graduate. I got a business degree, but I was sick, my heart palpitations, and I thought I was going to die. So I said, well, I'm going to travel instead of getting a career. I'm just going to travel.
Yeah. I'm going to die young. Make the most of it, right?
Yeah, see the world. So I did the Northwest, Oregon, Eugene, and been up to Seattle, Alaska. Yeah, finally, it was acupuncture that really gave me direction in life when I was about 32 years old. That's when it really coalesced for me. Going back to this improv idea. So that's very interesting because, yeah, when I was in college, I took one theater class and we did an improv, which is kind of fun. But I've been thinking, you may have seen, like, we lost our house with the hurricanes that came through last month. I live in Florida, in Matlacha, Florida, which is now becoming famous for hurricanes. We had a little mobile trailer, got damaged very severely in Hurricane Ian in 2022. In 2024, we had Hurricane Helene, which brought a foot of water in our house. And so my wife and I, we cleared our belongings. We were going to rebuild, but then 2 weeks later, Hurricane Milton came and totally destroyed our trailer. We must have had 3-foot waves or whitecaps just bashing against our house. So anyway, we're in the process of trying to find a new place, and we may move to Fort Myers. And what I'm kind of interested in is they have a theater district here. And I don't know how much I'm into this idea, but it would be like an improvisational theater on the interpretation of dreams, where we can interpret people's dreams. Maybe somebody in the audience writes out a dream, and then you have actors acting out that dream. And then in the meantime, I could interpret the meaning of the dream to the crowd. So I was thinking about theater again, with this possible life-changing situation we're in. I call it the interpretation of dreams theater, which would involve some improvisation.
So would it be therapeutic or entertainment or both?
I think it would be education, informational, and therapeutic, because theoretically, I would like to also incorporate acupressure. Just have some people sitting in a chair and do acupressure based on whatever the organ, the channel that the dream signifies.
Now, you could bring in all kinds of your thinking here, couldn't you? You could bring in the character, the organs. So, for folks that aren't familiar, you and I have a little bit of language that we share. First of all, the Saam, right? There's that. And then the stuff from Dr. Choo, which I think originally came from Kim Hong Kyung, the mind path. For folks that aren't familiar with this aspect, because look, a lot of us are very interested in the spirit of the organs, and, we often think about the 5 phases and the kind of characters and personalities that you find there, right? There's a whole pantheon of personalities in there. But with the mind path, there's ways of looking at the organs, also through the relation of the Chinese clock and how they all work together. Could you give us a quick little introduction on that for folks who may not be interested?
Well, yeah. And for your listeners, like what we're talking about is really identifying constitutional patterns which can be found in somebody's dreams. And maybe for your listeners, I'll just kind of run through the three levels of human needs. Would that be okay? Just
Yeah, that'd be great. I think it'd be helpful.
Okay, so the three levels of human needs are Assam acupuncture foundational theory, which I don't really see it in other acupuncture theories. So this may be very unique to Saam acupuncture. It's the three levels of human needs. We identify three levels of human needs, and which with each of these levels of human needs, there's an associated organ or channel associated with that. The level one human need is the need for food and money and material possessions. And the need for food pertains to spleen, and the need for money, material possessions, and that includes establishment of a home or one's homeland. That pertains to the lungs. The next level of human need is the need for relationships. There can be sexual relationships, which pertain to the kidneys, and then the family, friend, spiritual relationships, loving of a pet, a family friend. There can be spiritually good relationships or demonically bad relationships. Those pertain to the heart. So level two need for relationship is kidney and heart. And then the level three need is self-actualization, which we talked about, wanting to be recognized for one's skills, talents, achievements, kind of the power that you get from that. That's liver. And the need for knowledge, wisdom, and teaching or influencing in the realm of performance, that would pertain to the pericardium. So the theory is that these three levels of human needs can be identified in one's dreams. And particularly, like you can pick up on a person's constitution sometimes by identifying these themes in a dream. So I've done research on this for over 10 years now, and I actually wanted to share this with you, Michael. I wanted to share my methodology, one of my methodologies in the interpretation of dreams. And this is really, I think you'll find this really neat. Okay, so this is one of my research methodologies. One of them was a survey questionnaire where I had 76, 78 questions, and people answer a survey questionnaire in their dreams, and we look for patterns, constitutional patterns. Others, just interactions with patients. My patients tell me what their dreams are, and I try to pick up a theme. But there's another fascinating methodology, and this is what it is. On X.com, do you use Elon Musk X.com by any chance, social media?
Especially with the elections and everything, I've tried to stay away from all of that, just because I got enough noise in my life. But I am familiar with it. I mean, it's kind of like a marketplace of all kinds of ideas, as I understand it. It's kind of the wild, wild west. Like be careful. There's a lot of craziness and maybe some good stuff.
There's some interesting stuff, particularly with this. So if you go on X.com, particularly in the morning time when you wake up or you go to the office.
Oh, okay. Why is that? Why morning time?
Because if you type in these specific words in the search bar, okay, if you type in this phrase, and the phrase is, I had a dream. If you type those words in the search bar of X.com, you'll find within 1 minute, there will be about 5 people typing those very words on their X.com channel. So within a minute, there may be about 5 to 10 people who have typed, I had a dream. And if you go in the morning, you say people may wake up and they say, oh, I had a dream last night. So if you go on X.com, you can do it right now. And you just type in the search bar, I had a dream. And you can just find like people like, and this is funny because you'll see like somebody just posted this 3 seconds ago. Somebody just posted 3 seconds ago, I had a dream, and I'll look at it and I can interpret like, oh, this dream reflects knowledge and wisdom, the third level of human needs. This pertains to the pericardium. So I have like a quick response. I'll say, literally, I have like something I copy and paste. I'll say, this dream, this reflects a level 3 human need for knowledge. This pertains to the pericardium. So they're typing, I had a dream with like 3 seconds ago, and you're replying like in 10 seconds of them posting, oh, your dream reflects a level 3 human need, reflecting knowledge and wisdom. And then they type back, wow, this is great. This is amazing. So it's very interesting because you can identify and try this as when we're done. Try it. I had just type in the search bar. I had a dream, and you'll find like the themes, like you'll find certain themes, like particularly with the heart, relationships, family, friends, loving. And you'll see a lot of people saying, I had a dream about my mother, grandmother, somebody who had passed away. And they had a dream about the close loved one who passed away. And they'll say, and then I woke up in tears. And so that's a level 2 need for relationships, for heart. And as acupuncturists, we also know that tears are the body fluid associated with the heart. So right there, that person has a lot of heart energy. They may not be a heart constitution, but they got a lot of energy in the heart channel. So if I was to see them, I would do acupressure on the heart channel. They got a lot of energy there. That's what the dream is identifying like a chi energized channel in their dream. They got a lot of chi in their heart channel. So I would do acupressure. But you identify these people, you have a level 2 need for relationships. This is the heart, and it's funny because they respond with a heart emoji back. Like, I think you can respond back. That's how you respond, is a heart. So you'll find like these level 2 needs, they'll respond with like a nice heart emoji back to you. Like you really touched something there. But what I find interesting is these level 3 people, especially for knowledge. I could give you an example. I have something like, if you wanted, I can read something that somebody posted. Would you like to hear something of a level 3 person that they posted on x.com? I got it right here.
Yeah, I want to hear it, but I want to comment first. This is really cool because, first of all, like here you are with x.com, you got this inquiry. It's almost like you're going into the collective unconscious, right? You've got this little taproot into the collective unconscious. Beyond that, if you want to learn this stuff that you're talking about, this is a live lab. Like you can just go to x.com, type in this. There's other prompts I'm sure you could also use to access this kind of material and just start to train yourself. You can play. It's a very safe place to play with it. What level is this person connected to right now? Where's their excess? Where's their deficiency? You can maybe even have a little interaction that might even be helpful for them. And you're training yourself to understand the stuff at the same time.
Yeah, and I find like in regards to interaction, like the interesting interactions are the people that you identify as level 3 need for knowledge, because they're going to come back and say, wait, I don't know what that means. What does that mean? Can you tell me? So you go on to explain. So I wanted to give you an example of somebody that identified a dream of theirs as knowledge. And this is what they said. They typed in on x.com, I had a dream that was weird. In my dream, it kept showing me Jerusalem is near Yadkin River. I had no idea what that means or why I dream about it. I looked up Yadkin River. It's in North Carolina, but I don't think it affected by the hurricane. Anyways, I know it's super weird, but wanted to share. I don't normally have dreams or visions. I'm sure it means nothing, but I thought it was odd. So quickly, within like probably a minute after he posted that, I responded, this dream pertains to the level 3 human need for knowledge. This pertains to the pericardium. That's all I write. And then he responded back to me and he wanted to know more. I forget what he said, but then I said further, and this is where you can help these level 3. It means, and I responded, it means that you are a very smart person and have a thirst for knowledge. Level 3 represents realms of performance too. Performance in knowledge could be teaching, influencing, or leading others. In employment, you could be a good manager of others. And then he responded then, and he said that he did like to take on leadership and teaching roles in his life. I think it was funny because like when I first responded like, oh, this is a level 3 need for human knowledge. He responded with something kind of funny. He said, what's the square root of an integer? And I said, oh, there it is right there. You're a knowledge driven person.
Now, how did you get level 3 pericardium thirst for knowledge out of Jerusalem is by this river?
Well, geographical, like, okay, Jerusalem, we know is the capital of Israel. And yet these geographical points, like somebody with knowledge, and specifically like these geographical landmarks. That's what kind of identified as a level 3 need. And especially like he gave it away too. He had no idea what it means, but I looked it up. So this guy was very curious. So he kind of gave that away too. But there's another dream too, I interpreted very similar, where somebody said, I had a dream my grandparents gave me a ticket to travel in a submarine from Austin, Texas to Antarctica. And he said, but I knew I'm going to be away for a few days. So I had to pause my Twitter account or something to that effect. And so that was also, I identified as a level 3 need. First of all, like geographical, knowledge of, I'm going to be away for a while if I'm going to Antarctic on a submarine. And then I have to plan to be off of Twitter for 3 days. So again, that was like the same kind of thing. I identified these level 3 needs in those dreams. Yeah, they come back. Another lady I did the other day, she dreamed that she was writing for Harry Potter series. She wrote in zombies into the story. So I said, oh, okay, you're level 3 human need. And hers was because she's writing. It's a performance kind of thing, knowledge, Harry Potter books. And then I said, oh, yeah, you may want to be a leader, influencer, maybe you want to be famous. And she responded, boy, you really nailed that. Yeah, I find these level 3 people are very interesting. If you want to interact deeply, you can interact with these level 3 people that you identify as a pericardium knowledge dream.
Imagine this. A patient walks into your clinic. They're carrying more than the pain in their body. There's a story there. A history woven with the stress of long days, the ache of things unsaid, and the quiet longing for something to shift. You listen, not just with your ears, but with your hands, your intuition, your heart. It's not just about needles or a formula. It's about connection. Understanding the threads that tie us together, mind, body, and spirit. That is where golden flower Chinese herbs comes in. Rooted in tradition and crafted with care, their formulas are more than herbs. They're a bridge between ancient wisdom and modern practice. Every bottle, a quiet partner in your work, helping you to meet your patients where they are. Because healing isn't just about treating symptoms. It's about creating trust, cultivating belonging, and helping someone feel truly seen. Golden Flower Chinese Herbs, your partner in practice and connection, where tradition meets care. Can you also take this, I'm going to say mindset, perspective, I'm going to say capacity for understanding humans? When I think about psychology, we often think about the DSM-5 and the problems that people have and all the pathologies, but you can also take psychology and look at it through models of development or models of personality, right? Like the Myers-Briggs or the Big Five, or, there's all kinds of ways of looking at like how we're kind of put together in our character, and use that to help people if they're stuck, if there's a pathological thing going on, but you can also use it to help people that are already kind of okay and to flourish even more. Or maybe they're basically okay, but they're stuck. And there's a certain way that they kind of are. And if you can like sing their song or who they are back to them, now they're back in touch with resources that they've already got. So I'm wondering if, in addition to dreams, you can also use this as you're working with people in your clinic, just hearing about the day-to-day, the stuff that's kind of got them stuck or the stuff that's on their mind.
Yeah, energetically, there can be a lot of, seasons of, obviously with the 5-element theory, each of these organ channels has their season. So you may pick up patterns in dreams, seasonal patterns in dreams, depending on which season. But I wanted to back up because what's the purpose of all this? We're acupuncturists and we want to help people along. We want to help them achieve their goals, physical goals, get them healthy, get them out of pain. But, this is psychologically, this is something else too. It's like guiding them on their purpose in life. Now, I wanted to also mention, in regards to guidance, when in dreams, and maybe I think young people have this kind of dream, and I'm sure you may have had these dreams because you kind of had uprooted traveling when you were younger. So in regards to the kidneys, water is the element of the kidney and fear is the emotion pertaining to the kidneys. So water in ancient China signifies danger. I'm sure you've been taught that. You've heard water signifies danger.
I don't know if I've been taught that, but I hear you say it and I go, okay, I can get the resonance of that. I mean, water's amazing and beautiful stuff. Look, I've sailed a lot of my life. Water's amazing, beautiful, wonderful stuff. Don't turn your back on it. It will kill you very quickly. Also a lot of fun to play with, but it will kill you quickly. So be careful.
Okay, but have you ever had dreams where water, by the way, according to Carl Jung, is the most common theme of a dream is water. So in a dream, water can be turbulent and dangerous. Now, it can also be very calm and pleasant. But if it's turbulent and danger, that indicates uncertainty in one's life. Because we're talking about kidneys, and kidneys are especially strong in young people should have strong kidney essence, but also young people being young, they're uncertain of their place in life. So one of the themes is that young people may have dreams of turbulent, dangerous waters in their dream, but not only water, also wild animals, attack by wild, dangerous animals, threatening animals in their dreams. That can indicate uncertainty in their 3 levels of human needs. They're not established yet in what they're doing in their life. So that's a time when you can guide people, come across this on X-Diet when somebody says, attacked by wild animals or dangerous water. Oh yeah, well, I can probably tell you're probably a young person. You probably don't know your place in the world. There's a lot of uncertainty. You probably got good health. You got good, strong kidneys. But what is the kidneys? Kidneys determine lifelong processes. There's going to be no overnight fix. These are lifelong things you want to encourage them on. And what do the kidneys? They produce marrow, which is substance of brain, but also kidneys are kind of like the root of skill and focus, the ability to focus, develop the skill, be in dexterity and in musical practice, but it's lifelong kind of processes regarding the kidneys. So yeah, young people may have these turbulent dreams of water, danger, animals, and you can identify, well, yeah, you're probably uncertain in your life. If you can study, if you can focus on something, you'll develop well. So that's something that you could guide people into, just according to the dream that was revealed.
Wow. Okay. This just sets off all kinds of associations for me.
Yeah. Did you ever have dreams like that?
Yeah. Not so much wild animals, but for sure, tidal wave walls of water.
Do you notice if it was more when you were younger? Are you still getting hit with these tidal waves of water nowadays?
It's been a long time since I've had a tidal wave of water dream.
What about, do you have dreams of water nowadays where it's calm and pleasant and you got control over it? It's not a threat.
Not so much in my dreams, but again, I like to go sailing when I can, so I like to interact with it directly. And there is a real joy in, the cool thing about sailing is you're using wind and water as these counterbalances. On a nice, pleasant day where there's a moderate breeze, it's just, really a sweet walk in the park. It's like a really groovy little ride. And when it's really howling out there, it's like hold on for dear life, and it requires a lot of skill and a lot of focus so you stay upright. It's scary and it's super fun, right? If you've got the capacity to do it, it's a blast.
It's funny, and I think your readers may not know, or the listeners may not know that you're a sailor and you have sailing. And me too. We've already talked in the past about sailing. Like for me, I had a sunfish sailboat, and I remember the first time I took my sunfish sailboat, I had it all rigged incorrectly. It was all wrong, and so I realized as soon as you launch, you're like, oh my God, this is all wrong, And so you have to form a plan. What am I going to do? This was in Matlacha. So, okay, I'm going to sail across the sound. There's shallow water. It's like 1.5 feet deep, which is perfect. I'm going to get out. I'm going to reset the sail, redo the tiller. But for whatever reason, I get to my point and the sail jams and I can't even get it down and the wind's blowing. So the next thing, I'm being blown into the wharves of these docks, but there's also a little kayak launch right next to that. So I managed to beach my boat on somebody's property, and I'm like, this is a maritime distress situation. If they come out saying get off my property, I'm going to claim this is a maritime emergency, So fortunately, I was able to beach the boat, re-rigged the boat, reset it. But my problem now was I had to launch from shore into the wind, and these wharves are right next to me. I had no clearance, like very little clearance.
That's right, man. You're threading the needle here.
Yeah. So that was like really like the adrenaline was like just going crazy. Like it was such a scary kind of adrenaline filled journey. But I managed to set out and clear the wharf by just a few feet and went on my way. But that was really one of those kind of chaotic sailing experiences that can develop.
For sure. And there's a lot that you learn in those moments, right? I mean, you learn a lot about boat handling and wind direction and your own capacity that's developing as you're doing it, right? There's this, and I think this is true in so many parts of life. There's capacities that we're in the process of developing. We're not there yet. And the way it gets developed is in the moments of some trial and tribulation. It's like something sparks, something gestates, something changes, but it requires that, like, this could go bad. And it does come down to attention, right? You were talking about kidney as having focus. I hadn't thought about that. This makes a lot of sense. There's a certain kind of focus, and the fear makes you focus. Fear is very helpful for focus. And you'll see this with fight and flight, right? When you're scared, your vision narrows, you become very attentive to particular things, like the thing of danger. You become very attentive to it. And it's what gets you through, and it's what, and then you learn, and now you've got more capacity, your kidney is more firm. I'm wondering, because there's so many issues with young people. Listen to me, I'm like an old guy with, white hair now, right? Kids these days, terrible. I have to really watch myself.
I was literally telling somebody, I really did walk to the bus stop a mile in snow and in the cold winter times. That was, what we did when we were kids. I was just telling that story the other day.
It's funny. Yeah. Now you're in Florida. But I'm coming at this from an acupuncturist with a heart of concern and, wanting to help people. Younger kids, ADD, ADHD, it's a big thing. Focus is a big thing. A lot of kids on meds. And that whole piece that you spoke to about, look, when you're young, you don't know who you are or what you are yet. There's this whole process of discovery, really. It's not learning, it's discovery, who you are. And so it makes me think about, wow, maybe for kids that have ADHD, like really take a look at the kidneys and see what's going on there. I hadn't thought about that, but that, now I'm curious.
Well, just imagine the opportunities if acupuncture had its place in education and meditation, if the kids learned the 5 elements. And I know, and maybe you may have been the same, but I know if going to school when we did, and then maybe in the 70s or 80s, I know I would have been diagnosed with ADHD. Fortunately, they didn't have that diagnosis back then. I mean, I drank too much soda and ate bad food, but yeah, I would have been an ADHD candidate.
Me too.
Boys are active. They need the outdoor activities. And sometimes it's, you get restless sitting in a chair. So, to me, it's like, yeah, it's not right, to medicate children if you can avoid it. And that's where, if acupuncture, if you can incorporate that, there's definitely studies that, children that meditate can cope better and stuff. But if they could be aware of this stuff, I think this would be a great opportunity for making children healthy, doing natural alternative things than getting them hooked on pharmaceutical medications, from an early age. Boy,
I hadn't thought about taking this into the schools through the rubric of meditation or through the rubric of here's some ways that you can learn to self-regulate yourself. And this thing that's being described as a problem with you, it's actually not a problem. It's a process. It's developmental. There's things that you can do to work with it. It's kind of a weird kid in school. So, had someone come along in high school and shown me the 5-phase chart or had a conversation with me like we're having right now, I would have been at 100%. I was meditating as a kid, right? I was meditating as a high school student. That was already kind of in place, bringing these aspects of our medicine in a kind of educational / therapeutic, but more educational. Here's a toolkit. Hey kid, here's a toolkit to help with this developmental phase you're going through. You're not broken, you're developing.
Yeah, acupuncture could really not just if you want to do the young kids, teach the young kids, one of the tools that you could bring into them is acupressure.
Totally.
Why not? They could do acupressure.
So could high school kids. It'd be really helpful. Wow, there's a whole aspect of our medicine that I don't think we've really focused on. There could be this educational piece. That's really interesting.
So yeah, I mean, I've thought about that in the past, like if with this interpretation of dreams, theater stuff, like doing acupressure. I thought about doing acupressure because if you do acupressure, obviously, you don't have the complications of with needles, but to practice to touch a stranger's hands, you do need a license. You if like a massage license, the only thing you don't need a license for is a religious exemption to touch people. You could claim religious exemption and do acupressure on people. Kids could do it.
Could you do it also with like an educational sort of license or?
You could, but you might need a license. To do it without a license, like,
Oh, yeah. Actually, wait. If you had an educational license and touching people, yeah, these days that could be really problematic.
yep, you could just do religious exemption and you could be allowed to touch people without a license.
Or could you teach kids to do it on other kids? Like, hey, we're going to.
Of course, like, properly, of course you'd have part of like, and I would, teach them like as part of like, I would give a little religious exemption class. And of course, like rule number one is like no sexual activities at all. No implied sexual things, nothing sexual touching. That would be, of course, rule number one if you're working with kids. Number two, if they're underage, I'd have a parent with them or their adult caretaker.
Yeah. But here's another thing, Evan. You were talking about the power of visualization and attending to your soma, so to speak, like attending to your body with your attention. And that's something anybody could be taught with some visualization, little guided imagery.
I do like incorporating the acupressure though with Saam because that becomes like the changing force. There's something, you can learn theory and visualize all day long, but now you're taking action on something, which is remarkable to go from point A. Like if you were doing oh, your dream reflects a strong heart. You have a lot of heart energy. Okay, very good. That's cool. Okay, now we're going to work on this energy. We're going to do something about it with acupressure on the heart channel, the 2 points on the heart 9 and liver 1. We're just going to do acupressure on those points. You can take this energy that you have. We've identified you got a lot strong chi in this heart channel from your dream. And where the mind goes, so goes the chi. You can take this energy and send it to these faraway points on the fingertip and toe tip point. And now you're really doing something and making an active change in their life. Or kidneys, you dream of wild water. You got a lot of strong kidney energy, but you're just, not established. But you do have a lot of kidney energy. We'll do a kidney channel meditation. So we can definitely take it to the action phase.
Yeah, I like the idea of taking it to the action phase, right? You really get some traction. In terms of like diagnosis, right? Here I am as a clinician, thinking clinically, right? So if they've got a lot of heart energy, would you consider that an excess and want to diminish that to some degree, bring in a counterbalance to balance it out? Or is it more like, oh, this is where you need some more attention to work through something, right? You were just talking about like dreams of turbulent water. Okay, let's tonify the kidneys. But I'm thinking as a clinician, oh, maybe they got too much water, and you want to calm that out. What's your thinking about that?
In certain cases, like if somebody has a dream of satanic, demonic, spiritual things being attacked, maybe that's something, but it still doesn't change. For me, I do the harmonized combination. So for me, it doesn't matter whether it's excessive or deficient. I'm still going to do the heart channel, but I'll also maybe I wouldn't go overboard in the beginning with I'll just do the heart channel point prescription, but maybe I would do a gallbladder on the opposite side of the body. The idea there, like an excess of heart with doing battle, love and courage is the theme. There can be righteous battle where like a Roman soldier, it's like it was a height of integrity to go into battle and die in battle with, you're going in with love and courage. Gallbladder pertains to courage and heart pertains to love. So there can be righteous battles, which is heart energy, and, go for it. I would still do the heart, but even if there's demonic possessions, bad spiritual haunted dreams, still do the heart, but maybe do the gallbladder points where you can release those bad energies. But for me, I'm not really concerned about whether it's excessive or deficiency. There's a lot of energy in that channel, and it can be moved and manipulated. And we want to move it. We don't want it to stagnate. We just want to move it to create movement towards their destiny, guidance, movement.
I like that word, guidance. Guidance. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, listen, I hear you say it. And so often in clinic, I'm not trying to guide, I'm actually trying to manipulate. I realize too often in clinic, I'm trying to manipulate. But maybe guidance is a better place to stand.
Yeah. And here's another kind of example that may make this idea clearer. And this is for grief. And we know like grief and sadness. Sadness is the emotion that pertains to the lungs. So lungs going to the 3 levels of human needs, the need for money, material possessions, establishment of a homeland, and members of your family make up your community. So they certainly can be part of your homeland. Now, if you have grief, pathological grief, where it's a long time now you've been grieving, or even if you anticipate, you don't even, when I was a kid, I used to anticipate my parents dying, and I would lie in bed and I'd cry. But my parents, thankfully, they're 90 years old and 92 now. They're still with me. But I remember like I would have grief. And so this pathological grief is if somebody continues to cry and sob. And to me, like it's an expenditure of chi, lung chi in particular. If grief affects the lungs, then we would be in jeopardy of diminishing our lung chi. And there could be respiratory ailments or distress that result. That could be the danger of prolonged grief. So with this idea of guidance, like I'll have them meditate on the lung points, the lung tonifying points. And I'll say, when you get moments of sobbing, and to me, sobbing is like waves of chi. It's like a lot of energy in sobbing. So instead of like losing this chi, we want you to recycle it and channel it to these tonifying points of the lung jung gyuk. And so by that, we're kind of recycling and channeling the energy so that it doesn't get expended and become a chi deficient condition. So to me, that's kind of like this idea of guiding one's chi or recycling channel in the case of grief where chi could be expended theoretically. I don't know if that makes it kind of clearer as far as guiding or, manipulating.
It gives me another data point. And again,
Yeah, there's that 3rd level of human needs for you, pericardium, Michael.
busted again. The fun thing about these podcast conversations, I always come away with something. There's like always something where I go, oh, I kind of knew that, but I didn't know that. It was like in the back of my mind, but I hadn't really shined the light of my awareness on it. But today, having this conversation with you, recognizing, because I want to be helpful, and I'm a little bit demanding of myself and others. So I think there are times in clinic, honestly, that I've been more manipulative than guiding. It's like I want people to get better, and I think I know what's going to help, and I'm going at it with everything I got. It's a little manipulative when I think about it. It might be a little bit strong, like I know and you don't. So I'm going to do these points so you see the light. I remember having a patient some years ago who had a particular disposition, and her disposition caused her a lot of trouble and suffering. And I thought if I could change her disposition, she would suffer less. Right, so I'm going to use some Saam talk here. All you Saamers out there are going to get this, and those of you that are not Saamers yet, well, here's something to think about. She was very much I'm going to say triple burner excess person. She's very meticulous, very attentive to detail, both in herself and in the outer world. And she liked that about herself, but it brought her a lot of trouble because she's like constantly never good enough and always attending to this and that. And tonifying her liver was usually very helpful for her because it would just put a little like blanket on the whole thing. Just like instead of being so focused on stuff, she could be a little bit softer. So one day I thought, instead of tonifying her liver to help balance her out, I'm going to drain the triple burner. So it'll just take this away from her and she'll be a lot happier. So I did that. And the next time she comes back in, she says, I don't know what you did to me last time, but I didn't sleep well. I've had a terrible week. Whatever it was you did last time, don't you ever do that to me again.
Oh boy, that can hit you hard.
Best of intentions. I got this thing. I think I know what's good for you, but I was taking away something that was essential to her. And I was being more manipulative than guiding. I mean, it really pointed out to me that with the best of intentions, man, you can really go down the wrong path.
Yeah, but that's very interesting. Yeah, it's a learning experience. I mean, of course, like yeah, I hate those moments when it goes bad with a patient.
But I love them at the same time, right? Like, oh, it's like your sailboat. You're like going in between the piers to hit the beach.
Yeah. But I mean, that speaks to your skills, you know. Well, I'm lucky. I learned this from one of my teachers at school. And he said, to be a good doctor, you got to kill 2 patients first. I mean, not literally, but I'm sure he was he was in the Korean facility. So I'm sure he's had patients die, maybe under his care, maybe, you know, in the hospital. But yeah, I mean, you don't intentionally do it, but it really steels you up to learn from those moments. And it does steel you up. And it does, there's things where you take, you know, you can't rely like on manipulation of yourself. Like for instance, I remember when I was into Qigong and I was doing Qigong or Reiki on my patients and I was like giving them my energy. I quickly learned like, no, it's not going to work. Let this spiritual, like, and this is my spiritual belief. Let the Holy Spirit do the work. I can't do the work. It's got to be the Holy Spirit, something outside of me. So I quickly withdrew from being so manipulative in that respect, in that kind of treatment.
Yeah, it's a fine line that we learn to walk.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, just kind of let it flow. And you did the good thing though. I mean, I think that was an appropriate treatment. You identified an excess in the triple burner channel and it would make sense to drain it. So that was not a bad treatment either. I mean, and it obviously made a big effect.
It made a big effect. And what it taught me was be careful. Be careful with what I think is true, right? Pay attention to the patient, pay attention to the results. But also that sometimes there are aspects of people, maybe those aspects are troublesome to them, but they, for whatever reason, are precious aspects of who they think they are. And it's worth respecting.
Yeah. Especially with her. She's talented. Sounds like a pretty talented person. We don't have to do all the work. You know, let the chi move. We'll give them some information, education, and we'll give them a great experience and hopefully a transformative, you know, life healing, you know, sessions. And, but there's definitely life outside of acupuncture that they got to contend with. And that's going back to my own personal experience. You know, I would get acupuncture twice a week for 2 months, but during this twice a week appointments, I was meditating on the channels for 5 to 8 hours every day. So that was my own personal experience. So we can't be there all the time. So we got to leave it to whatever, you know, their own healing and other things.
And recognizing too, people come to see us, they spend a very small, limited amount of time of their life with us. And so much, I think of what actually constitutes healing is what they're doing and all the rest of the time. You know, sometimes we can make these little course, or they make these little course corrections. We see something, we give them something that might be helpful, connect them with a resource that they didn't know they had.
I like that. That's a great way to put it.
And it's obviously something they had. People come out of my treatment rooms all the time with that look in their eye, and you know what I'm talking about, and everyone listening knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, all the acupuncturists. But if you're not an acupuncturist, it's described as people walking away like they're floating on air.
Well, they're floating on air, but they're connected to something, and they'll sometimes come out and go, like, what was that? Or they come out and they're clearly connected to something, and they're afraid that it's going to go away. And I always tell them, look, this thing you're feeling right now, this experience you're having, the acupuncture did not put it into you. It does not come from outside, right? Acupuncture can only call forth something that is already in you. So this thing that you're experiencing right now, this is you. And so often they didn't realize that this was them.
I know. Boy, you're just turning on lights. You know, lights are just going off in their head and their minds. And total transformation when you really think about it. They walk out completely transformed. That's what's amazing about our medicine.
It's them. It's not us. This is the other beautiful thing. We get to guide in some way. It's like they're the ones doing the work. It's really a privilege to be in the presence of people going through those kind of realizations.
But don't discount yourself. I like to, and with Saam acupuncture, I think it's an amazing engineering of human health system. And this is our technical, technique, is manipulating this engineer that's a fixed, nothing's fixed, but engineering of human health. It's real. It exists. These patterns are identifiable. They can be manipulated on with acupuncture. It's very real. I mean, to me, there should be like the law of the 5 elements, the law of qi, the law of yin. These should be like scientific laws because they're real. They really exist. They should be scientific laws, but people don't know about them.
Well, I guess that's why we're here, huh? Doing what we can. Well, wow, Evan, we should probably try to wind this thing down because, otherwise we're going to have to pull out whiskey and cigars and go all Joe Rogan on it.
But what a pleasure it's been. It's been awesome talking with you. I really enjoyed this conversation, Michael.
Yeah, me too. It's really been a blast to Ja'aman Saam man.
Yeah, man. Jamin Saam. Dang, get the dang, dang, ding, ding. Alrighty.
Well, till next time then.
Okay, and I look forward to listening to more of your podcast. Keep going, man. Keep going, and God bless you and what you've been doing.
Thanks. Well, it's everyone like you who sits down for a conversation that makes it possible.
Yeah.
All right. Well, smooth sailing, okay?
Okay, you too, Michael. Bon voyage.
All right, take care. I was sitting here after this conversation with Evan, and I'm really struck by how something keeps showing up in my own clinical work. This whole question of who people fundamentally are versus trying to fix them. I mean, how often do we start with a patient thinking we know what needs to be done, only to discover there's something much more interesting that's quietly asking for attention? Evan's story about finding acupuncture through his own heart troubles, and then that deep dive into point meditation, it makes me think about how our own healing journeys shape the kinds of practitioners we become. I'm particularly intrigued by the 3 levels of human needs that he talked about in Saam acupuncture. I keep looking for how these show up not just in my patients' lives, but also starting to notice these patterns in my own as well. That whole piece about working with younger folk really got me thinking. That connection between kidney energy, focus, and the natural uncertainty of development, it's fascinating how our medicine sees these developmental processes as natural rather than something that needs to be fixed. And maybe that's the real insight that I'm taking away from this. The difference between trying to control outcomes and learning to follow the natural flow of healing. If you're curious about how constitutional patterns shape your work with patients or how dreams might illuminate someone's essential nature, well, there's plenty here to contemplate and maybe bring into your own practice. I know I'll be thinking about this one for a long while. Well, here we are at the end of this episode. If you've listened up to this point, you're either a rabid fan of Qiological or the forward button on your podcast player stopped working. If you are indeed a fan of the podcast, you can help us to bring new episodes to our community of practitioners by supporting us with a membership or a one-time contribution. Details, of course, are on the website. That's it for today, friends. Join us again next Tuesday for another thoughtful episode of Qiological.